Welcome everyone to day 2 of the Level Up to Scale Up Summit. Yesterday was a great day.
It was amazing. Thank you.
I'm like, how are we even gonna top yesterday? And then I'm like, oh, it's possible. It's very possible. Wow, like the juiciness that came out of yesterday, I hope was impactful. If you were a part of yesterday, drop us something in the chat and let us know what your favorite part was. But before we get started, we always like to set an intention for the day. Oh, good one, MJ, mindfulness. We're going to set our intention for the day. If you want to write it down, if you want to drop it in the chat, what are you like? What is your intention today? What do you want to learn? What do you want to take away? Like, what is the thing that is bringing you here today? Sarah is saying growth. Yes. So just drop that in the chat. Also, you are more than welcome to, I forgot to mention this yesterday, but if you want to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know how people can find you, including if you are in the audience, we want to follow you too. So the great thing is that we can save the chat and then go back and make sure that we connect with everybody. So feel free to do that. I want to make sure that there is an open invitation for you to introduce yourself. And if you take any photos today of our event, which we would love for you to do, take photos and selfies and screenshots and whatever, just make sure my face is not going, that would be great.
You can have her face doing that. Just
yeah. So there's hashtags in the chat. Level Up to Scale Up or 8338 Summit. I think is what you put in there, right, Paige?
Collective. That's
Collective. Right. Thank you. So yeah, feel free to, this is very interactive. We want you guys to utilize the chat because we will take whatever questions you have for our panelists and we will ask them. So Tamira, I'm going to bump you down, girl, to the audience because you in the next session, but we'll be seeing.
Oh, am I early? I'm actually early.
Girl, you get to hang out, participate. Like, that's awesome.
What time am I on?
You are on at 10:10, so 12:10.
Central time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I'm this early. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, don't. No. No, it's all good. Like we had, all of our panelists have been participating both days. So all day. Okay. It's all good. So you're right where you're supposed to be. No apologies. All right. And hold on a second. Making sure there's Miss Pauline. I'm going to bring Pauline into the mix. And I think we have everybody. All right. So, Paige, did you want to start us off?
Whoa, that was funny. Yes. So first of all, like Elaine said, thank you so much for those who are here today, as well as those who are here for a second day for the Level Up to Scale Up Summit. Elaine and I worked really hard to curate a bevy of speakers and thought leaders that we thought would be able to bring it. And so far, we have been so blessed and honored that you decided to spend your time with us. We know your time is important. We know sitting in front of Zoom, you know, we've all had Zoom fatigue the last 18 months. So we appreciate your participation. Just some housekeeping. When you do come up, make sure as a panelist, make sure you mute yourself. Always feel free to hop in if there is a question that you would like to ask. As always, make sure that you put things into the chat because I will be manning the chat to see if there are any questions for additional questions for our panelists or any sort of comments. Throughout the day today, we will be asking people to engage with us. That is how we as moderators and the presenters of this summit know that you're with us and that we are giving you the value that you are here for. So with that being said, as Elaine mentioned before, if you are just getting onto the call, please make sure that you put your contact information in the chat, both attendees and panelists, because we would love to connect with you. If there is someone that is a panelist today that just completely resonates with you, feel free to reach out and connect with them. My intention for the 2 days is all about connection and collaboration. So I want you to find somebody that you can like jam with and learn more about and reach out to them. And I am that person that will be like reaching out to you and saying, who did you connect with? So know that is for sure. I am Paige Engel, and I am a visibility strategist and marketing director for Polka Dot Powerhouse Worldwide. I am a mom. I'm a wife. I love all things French, and I am a sandwich generation influencer with a live channel on Amazon. We are all about, when Elaine and I decided to create this whole thing, it was all, our tenets are education, accountability, and mindset. And so if it doesn't fall within those three things, we don't do it. And so we decided to start the 8338 Collective as a community and a space to be able to encourage that for all people. And so I'm going to introduce my bestie, business bestie, Elaine. Elaine, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Elaine Terso, aka Elaine the Brain. I am known for my crazy pop rocks when I talk to people and just like spill out onto them all the stuff that is coming through. But I am a business coach and strategist, and I love helping entrepreneurs get out of their own damn way and get shit done, plain and simple. And I'm getting ready to open up my own marketing agency called the Insource It Marketing Agency. It'll be a done for you agency that will help coaches and consultants, etc., launch their signature programs in 30 days like that. So right now I am searching for my dream team. So if you do done for you services, please let's connect, because maybe you'd like to become a part of my dream team. But with that being said, today's topic right now, we are going to be focusing on leadership and business development.
Yes.
And then just to give you a quick little agenda, if you did not get the email this morning, we're going to have a break at 10 a.m. Pacific, so 12 o'clock Central. We'll have a 10-minute break, potty, water, movement, and then we will come back at 10:10 for our sales and marketing panel, so 12:10 Central. And then we will have a 30-minute lunch, get some food, get some, like just take care of yourself at 11:30. And then Fidel will be coming to rock our world at 12 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Central. And then if you are a panelist or a paid ticket holder, you will be able to participate in our mastermind, where you will get to come in the hot seat with our panelists, and we will help you figure some stuff out. And then we will have a co-working session at the end of the day, where we will, our whole thing, why we do this is we don't want you to just come and learn. Coming and learning is great. But what about coming and doing, like actually taking action? Because you can learn all the stuff, but if you don't actually take the time, and that's what we're doing. We're giving you the time, we're giving you the space, we're giving you the support to get shit done. So
implementation is probably one of the most underutilized, activities that you can do for yourself and your business. So that is why we wanted to make sure that we held space for that today. Yep. And for me, as an educator and an online teacher, that's my forte, right? That is what I do the best, is helping take the complex concepts and making it so that people can understand it from a functionality standpoint, right? Like, how do you make a Instagram reel? How do you navigate in the different platforms? So we wanted to make sure that we pulled together lots of people who would be able to help you both with strategy and implementation. And that's the fireworks that we're bringing right now. And so when it came to the agenda today, leadership and business development, we wanted to make sure that people really had a really good grasp of what leadership is, as well as business development, because a lot of people are out there throwing out fancy words and fancy phrases, but what does that really mean? And so we brought together this incredible panel of thought leaders to get that started for you. Okay, so one of the things that we actually asked you all to do was to take the endotype quiz to find out what your endotype is. And this is a wonderful system that was created by Laura. And so we're hoping that you did. And if you did, if you could put your endotype in the chat, that would be great. So that Laura can kind of see a little bit of what everyone is doing. So Laura, as people are putting their endotypes in the chat, can you just tell us or share with us, what do you think is the biggest misconception when it comes to leadership?
Oh, by far, I think the biggest misconception is that it's not me, right? It's not me. That's what they do. That's what this person does. And I think in business, there are certain endotypes that move towards more of what I call a traditional leadership model, right? So it's like, these are the CEOs, these are the people who are on stage, these are the people who are very visible, these are the people who are very action-oriented or very direct. That makes up about 1/4 of the people. And so then there's this 3/4 of the people that's like, okay, for me to be a leader, I have to get more precise, more organized, more than I naturally am. I have to become different than who I naturally am and how I'm naturally designed. And it blows my mind, because I'm like, that you're describing somebody who's not even you. I was like, how can you be a leader? And so that was one of the reasons that I started investigating leadership styles connected to endotypes, to be able to go, okay, you know what, you're the harmonizer. You lead like Gandhi. How did Gandhi lead? He wasn't this like, hey, let's get all super organized and get everything done, right? He had people around him who did that kind of stuff. But if you start understanding what your leadership style is and a model to be able to follow and the strengths that go with your endotype, everybody can then become a leader.
Lots of people putting their endotypes in the chat. Do you see them, Laura? I'm going to
Yep.
add mine. I had to go look mine up again because I forgot the name.
Yep.
So can you just kind of give everybody just a brief overview of what the endotype is and why like this,
Sure.
how this came about?
Sure. Well, so it's a program I've been working on for 6 years. I've always been a personality type junkie. I preferred more of the 4-quadrant model in the past, you know, things like DISC, and there's lots of other ones, right? There's the 4 colors, or the, you know, like 4 gemstones, depending on where you learned the 4 different type model. And I connected with somebody who was more about the 16 personalities, right? More Myers-Briggs style. And we were arguing about the values of each. And as it was like, well, I don't like this about this model. Well, I don't like that about this one. And so we were like, well, how can we fix that? As we started fixing, what became clear is we were making a new model. And when an idea wants to be born into the world, it will find its way in. And I really do think that the endotype formula was one of those inspired ideas that was ready to be born into this world. And fortunately, it picked me as the vessel. So I stayed curious. And what the endotype does is it takes those brain functions, right? How does your brain work? And it sets that as the foundation. But we're not just thoughts. We're also all of these energies and emotional cravings and this physical meat suit. And all of those things combine in the endotype formula to be able to explain why certain people who think a certain way also have a certain body style that goes with them. Certain people who act a certain way or who are oriented a certain way have certain cravings, certain things that they just can't get enough of. Or they go through their entire life feeling unworthy, or go through their entire life feeling like they don't belong, because it's part of their design, and it's not there to trip them up. It's there to bring them some super skills.
So you just made Susie's day by using the word meat suit.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's we got to take care of this meat suit. This is
Yeah.
where all the rest of it lives.
Yeah. So can you tell everyone, how has this endotype formula changed your perception of leadership?
Well, first of all, the fact that we all can be leaders, like that's the number one. The number two is it starts here, right? A lot of times leadership and a lot of leadership focused material is focused on how do I get people to follow me? How do I get people to like me? It's focused out here, right? It's like out there, how to win friends and influence people. That's out there, looking at other people. But in order for me to be a leader, I first got to get right and tight in here. Like I have to know who I am, what I do well, and what I totally stink at. Because if I know what I totally stink at, it's not for me to then like, ooh, I'm going to work really hard and improve that. It's for me to go, maybe that's not my job. Maybe that's what I need to outsource. Maybe that's what I need to find a partner to align with. What inspires me? What are my superpowers so that I can go pour into other people? Because I'm not going to be the leader for everyone. I'm just going to be the leader for those that I can best suit, I can best work with. But it has to come back to understanding how I am made up. And by knowing that, I then can go, leadership becomes so easy when I become aligned. Then all of a sudden, people naturally want to follow me.
So I have an interesting follow-up question for you, which is, if we have people watching who are solopreneurs, they don't have a team yet. How can this talk of leadership help them in their business if they are like, but I don't have a team, I'm just a solo by myself, like me, I'm a solo right now, right?
Sure. And that's and being a solo by yourself doesn't mean you have to do all the stuff yourselves. Right. So I may not have a team, but I can go to Upwork and I can pay for somebody to do some design work for me.
Right.
I may not have a team, but I can collaborate with somebody who's really great at design work.
Yes, thank you.
I may not have a team, but my best friend is a really good proofreader, and lonely adrenal interpreters right up in here. We are this one. Not a good speller, not a good proofreader. I can't proofread my own work. Like, it just doesn't happen. I run it through like 3 or 4 different grammar programs and there are still mistakes in there. So I have a really good friend who owes me a solid. I'm going to use her to do my proofreading for me. So all of those things, it's about owning the flaws. It's about knowing the superpowers, owning the flaws, and still finding those things in between. And here's the other thing that I think it's about. If you're a solopreneur and there's somebody going, you know what, Laura, you should really write a bunch of articles. And I know that writing articles, not my jam. Like, right? I stink as a proofreader, right? I'm great on video, but I stink as a proofreader. But this is what you need to do. Right? The experts come along and they go, this is what you need to do. By knowing who I am, I can go, interesting theory. Maybe down the line, when I have access to a proofreader, I can take my videos, transcribe them, have the proofreader or copywriter totally transform them. But that's not gonna be my main strategy right now, because I'm gonna work in my zone of genius and not that expert's zone of genius over there.
Yes,
you have a lot of bobbleheads going.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, we are the bobblehead crew, because, when you are an effective leader, you have that self-awareness and you recognize those traits to make yourself more effective, essentially. Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. So good. So let's talk a little bit more about, everyone has all of these things on their list. Oh my gosh. Some people are list people. Some people are, calendar people and all that kind of stuff. So I want to talk to Francine a little bit because she knows what it's like to work with people with crazy lists, right? All the things. And so explain to us a little bit, you have a really interesting concept. And I want you to explain to us a little bit about what does it mean for us to get more done by being more, not just having a long list, but by being more.
Right. No, it is. So I have a I don't remember stuff list, and I write all my thoughts down on it. Some I come back to, some I don't, right? Because I do think you have to get it out of your head and get it on paper to clear the clutter. And what I've learned is I used to be that person that, I said in my class, I mentioned I'm a control freak in recovery, right? So everything needed to be a certain way, and I needed to plan what might happen tomorrow, right? So what was happening was I was never in the present moment. So everything I was doing was so focused on what might happen tomorrow, what already happened yesterday, and I wasn't here. And when I started really coming back to being who I am, right? And I take my clients, and it's part of my masterclass, I take them through an exercise of like, who are you, right? Like, who are you being? Right? So my top values, my top beings are fun, enthusiasm, and connection, right? So I'm here, this is fun, I can bring my enthusiasm, and I'm connected to people. When the camera shuts off and I'm by myself, right? Like, yeah, I can have a little bit of fun by myself, but so understanding who you be, and that drives what you do, right? So I'm going to make choices based on that. Now, we all have lists. And I think part of it is realizing the lists never go away, right? So super high achiever women, then what we do is we beat ourselves up because we're not getting it done, right? I mean, I have the same things on my list for weeks. Now, there are some things that are must, right, in your business and in your personal life. And then there are other the nice things. So part of it is choosing it based on who you be. And then also really cutting yourself some slack and quiet, the other day, it came to me in meditation, and it came up in a few conversations. So I think it's worth even repeating here, right? Like, we are not the voices in our head. Right? Like, we are constantly, especially as women, telling ourselves, I should have done more. All of my clients, I'll say, how's your week? And they're like, oh, it was so productive. That's what we talk about, right? Like, how productive we are versus, oh my God, I was at this summit on Saturday with some amazing women and it was fun and I had so much fun, right? So it's really recognizing the difference between doing and being, right? Doing can be a chore. Being is a choice, right? Doing is a checklist. Being is consciousness, right? So it's really recognizing the difference between the two. And then how do you integrate them? You integrate them by really choosing from who you be and looking at all the different areas of your work, of your life, right? When I was in corporate, I wasn't as enthusiastic, right? I had a leadership role. So my staff knew I was a little woo and had crystals in my office. And I was doing Reiki on somebody if they had a headache, right? But the C-levels didn't know that was happening. So I was out of alignment, right? So it's also being who you be in all areas of your life, right? So now that I'm, a soulpreneur, and that's challenging, right? To Laura's point, like, I need people, right? Like, I'll call a friend and be like, hi, I host a virtual co-working once a week just because I needed to be around people, right? Because I know what it takes for me to be more, right? So it's really about being in alignment with who you truly are inside.
Yes, love that. I had one of my clients the other day, if she takes a day off, she's like, I'm so behind. And I'm like, it's not a race, right? How do you handle that thought of, if I take a day off for myself or something unexpected happens and you feel behind, which I don't think there's such a thing, but how do you help someone through that?
That's a great question, because I think it kind of goes to, it's a choice, right? Like, we make conscious choices for ourselves in life. And then you have to, if you make that choice, honor it, right? You're nourishing what you need, right? We can't be going at 100 miles a minute. I was laid off from corporate pre-COVID. So I was like COVID cool before it was cool to be COVID. And that's, I've been a coach for 8 years, but I did most of it in corporate. And over the last year and a half, right, that I've allowed some space and some leniency in my to-do list, right? Like I don't have that. When I had that panic of, oh my God, it's the weekends, we have to get everything done, right? Like I don't have that anymore. And it feels, I've done a lot of work to work through that, but it feels lighter, right? So if things don't get done, they don't get done. I looked at my husband this week and I was like, what has happened to our house? Like, when are we going to do the dishes? Right. And like, it's not that we're messy, but it isn't our priority. Like there are other things we're doing. Like we do them every day, but at the end of the day, they stacked up, right? Because it wasn't, what's really important, right? I talked to a woman the other day, she's working like 80 hours a week. And I was like, you have young children. When are you even seeing your kids? But she was all about the money and all about the work, right? Like what is our being? Right. So like for me, I want to be enthusiastic. So if I don't get to things, that's okay. As long as I'm having fun.
Yes. I love that answer. Thank you for that.
I also think it's very important to realize that your choices may not be the choices for other people.
Absolutely.
And everybody has their own priorities and how they handle things and what season of life that they're in. So just because you necessarily wouldn't make that choice doesn't mean that it's the wrong one for someone else.
And we have to be their own journey.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because if you had said this to me 5 years ago, I've been like, you don't know what you're talking about. I got stuff I got to get done. Right.
Yeah.
So we all have to learn too, what works for us.
And I think that is so critical when you are a leader and when you do lead a team, that you understand that everyone has different choices and they are entitled, and I'll use that phrase because that's what I really do mean, that word, entitled to make those choices.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about leadership. Thank you, sweetheart. Let's talk a little bit about leadership and hiring teams and all of that kind of stuff, or collaborators or a VA, or, working with that kind of thing. And I'm going to ask Sarah, because I know that she's built many teams over the years, both for herself and in a corporate environment. When you build a team, how do you know like the right person to hire?
Well, I think I want to start with saying we are worth being wowed. We are worth being wowed, because so much, especially in the business development part, we're wowing clients right and left, but we forget that we're worthy of being wowed too. And I'm in my 7th year of having people on payroll, and we have 12 people, all different people, very different people. And we need that, right? You need that different blend to make a team run beautifully. But what we do is filter everything through our corporate or our business values. And one of them is customer bliss, the other is teamwork, and the third is for the win. And so if somebody is not, into those values, or certainly not showing up in them, then I know they're not the right person in the right seat. And so one thing I have learned, so whether you are literally working with a contractor or having your neighbor kid come over and do the dishes, it all works the same, okay? So you don't have to have a payroll for this to work, but listen to your red flags, know that you are worth being wowed. So every single red flag I've ever had in hiring that I didn't pay attention to has bit me every single time. Here's a funny one that will help you lock this in. So I was hiring a videographer, and he was lovely, had a good demo reel, all things on paper looked great. We were talking, and he's like, I don't even know why this came up, because I think it was God trying to tell me, Sarah, not the right fit. He's like, I'm the last one at the table. I'm kind of a slow eater. And I've got this turtle named Peaches. And I'm like, oh, I love turtles. That's so cool. Okay. Homie did not have a greyhound dog that was going to race to the finish. He owned a turtle. And he was the last one at the table every day. I needed this person to be fast and effective. And I was like, that's so cool. Laura's left. True story. So honest to God, this man could not be fast enough and couldn't hit a deadline. My fault, not his.
Right. Yeah.
So, listen to your red flags. Don't ignore them. Don't wash them under the rug. Don't think that you're wrong. It's your message. Remember the turtle. Okay.
That's right.
Needed him to be fast. Man was a turtle. Doesn't match. Now I'm not against turtles, but slow eater, turtle.
Right.
He showed me his pace before I paid him for a year and struggled.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are.
That's the new hashtag.
Yeah.
Man on turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. And I tell it all the time because I'm like, remember me. Don't ignore the red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've heard this before, like when people tell you who they are, believe them, right? And I have, as I am going through this process of, wanting to find a dream team, I'm very conscious of who's contacting me and how they follow through. And if they cancel multiple times, I'm like, if you're going to treat me this way, how are you going to treat my client? So it's just really important. I think that you're right. You have to show, when people tell you and show you who they are, believe them. I think that is like a perfect, I can't remember where I heard it. It's probably some guru out there somewhere, but
not a guru, just a writer, fantastic author, not a guru.
Who was it? Who was it, Paige? It's going to drive me crazy now. I have to go look it up.
It was either Alice Walker or Toni Morrison, one of the two.
I think it wasn't it Maya Angelou?
Or maybe Maya Angelou.
Yeah, I think it was
some
Maya
old wise Black woman.
Sage, yes.
I don't know who the other two people are, so it probably was Maya Angelou.
Mother of Pearl. Are you kidding me? Okay, that's a whole nother side conversation.
I know, girl. Well,
I'm not even gonna play. I just put that in my head. Girl, don't play. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is how we are, guys. It's okay. I promise. This is why we get along so well, because we can dish it out to each other.
I lost audio.
We can't hear
Please,
you. We
Elaine.
can't hear you again, Elaine.
Okay, I don't know. It did that to me again. It did it yesterday too. I didn't push anything, I promise.
No,
Okay.
and it didn't say you were on mute. It was just your microphone was muted.
Yeah, that is like the weirdest thing ever. Okay, so Sarah, talking about building a team, how do you build a team if you're not sure like how to hire that first person?
Yeah,
Like
so
what's the process?
Start small, start doable, start, like I said, somebody doing the dishes. So when I coach clients, I'm like, okay, what's your time worth? And this is where we forget our time is worth a lot, right? Like my lowest performing activities minimum, like $158 an hour. The highest can be $1,000 an hour. Okay, I can get someone to do my dishes for way less than that. So you compare your, like, what do you want to sell the most of and how much an hour do you make at that? If you have any doubters in your house, if you have any doubters in your business, a lot of people want to weigh in and be like, you can't afford that. Well, guess what? If we're doing our dishes and somebody can do that for 10 bucks an hour and be happy about it, you're making $100 an hour probably. Okay, simple math there, right? But I started small with interns. I still have interns because that gives me a year to see if they're a hire. And then I hire them full time if they're good. Like then we get a bench built. So I started with an intern. I started with trading for services way back. Now accountants in the house will be like, Sarah, remind them that that actually counts on their taxes. Yes, asterisk. If you barter for services, you do need to account for it on your taxes, but it was a great way to start. They needed graphic design. I had a graphic designer and I needed office cleaning. And so, it worked. So start small with bartering, do your own math and compare and be real. Like what is your probably price per hour for you? And the math will do the rest for you. I'm telling you, you will always make more than $10 an hour on your zone of genius. And someone will happily send their college kid over or their high schooler to do whatever it is, the low level activity that you're doing. And you're going to be like, this is so awesome. I mean, I started, my best employee to date started as a 2-day-a-week person because I was thinking small. I'm like, okay, I'll just dip my toes in. She'll do this for like 10 hours And pretty soon she became someone who out-earned me in our company. And it's just getting the confidence built that you can do it, start where your comfort zone is, but push yourself a little. And it's okay to start on the home front if you're stuck doing dishes on a Saturday night and you don't have enough gusto on Monday morning to go do your high level activities. So I'm all about getting somebody clean. If that's not, if that's dragging you down. I was not a good mom. Sunday nights I was cleaning until 2 and just ticked at the world. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can hire this done on Friday when I'm at work, come home to a beautiful house. And now I'm mom of the year, right? Because I wasn't dragged down in that and I blessed somebody else's business. So just think of it that way. If you can't think of it for yourself, as whose business can I bless today? And that helps me a ton. So start small, start with interns, barter if you need to, start with the $5 neighbor girl, whatever. But just get your confidence built and the momentum will go from there because you're gonna be like, this is awesome. Why did I wait so long?
Yeah, so we did have a question. It's like now Doris asked, now when hiring interns, do you pay them or is it just for the experience? Because I know now interns are paid, most internships are paid. And nobody's doing stuff for free. When I was talking to my friend's daughter about her internship, she's like, I'm doing this, this, and this. I mean, she was doing less stuff than I did for an internship 35 years ago. And she was getting a stipend of, $20,000 for the summer. So what's your, well, that's the average, at least down in my city right now. That's the average of what people are getting for their internships. What would you say to someone, do you pay? Do you not pay? Do you try to sell the experience? I mean, how can you leverage that the best?
Yes, we do both actually. So the law has changed. It toggled back and forth. We had a year before last, I think we're mandatory payment for internships. Now it's turned back more in the employer's favor. Here's what we do. If they're getting credit for their college class, typically they're not paid because it's a coursework and we're in the marketing zone. So a lot of times you're going to find that. And then those interns need to shadow more than do, if that makes sense. So there are some like little sticky points. So you can still find free interns, but they are getting credit and their instructor's probably going to have a say on what they can be doing. So they need to be, getting more value than you are, basically. So you're not getting free labor. So then we also pay interns. If I want to dictate their schedule, if I want to get more than they are, meaning they're going to actively be doing in our business, I will pay them. I pay them a little more than, minimum wage, and they're thrilled because they thought they were going to be doing it for free. I also have interns who I pay a good wage because I want them to be doing higher level activities. And that's more like outbound marketing for our company. And I want to be directly involved and I'm going to have accountability measures for them. So we have 3 tiers. We do have free interns right now, low level pay interns, and then more high level pay interns. And then I've hired them. So that's another bonus. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And meals and mileage and, stuff like that.
All of that. Otisa, did you want to ring in on this? I know you're in the HR space.
Yeah, well, Sarah, you did a great job of explaining how you do it at your company. And I was going to say also, it depends on a lot of different factors. And I think you hit each tier on the nose. I have some folks that do externships, which is very similar. It's just based on credit hours, depending on the degree that they're getting. For me, I have an intern, she does work for free and I even offered to pay her and she told me no. Sometimes I do gift cards. Sometimes I give them gifts or maybe I give them like a lump sum, like here's a bonus. Like there's different things that you can kind of come up with. And I think as you build that rapport with that intern, you'll kind of figure out what are some things that they would love to have as a thank you for your hard work. I know you're getting some credit hours, but I also want to just show you how much I appreciate you. And you can kind of figure out how that could, blend well with your culture and how you show up in the workspace. So I think that Sarah hit like every single tier on the nose. But I also think that you can also show your love and support in other ways as well. So, and you can get creative. Like I'm actually going to offer her, there's a course I'm going to be launching. I'm going to give her free access to it because she's phenomenal. And I want to show her, like, I want you to grow. I want you to do amazing things. And if I can support you, I will do whatever I can to show your support. So that's kind of how there's different ways you can do it depending on where you are in the world. If you're a solopreneur, maybe you can do it the way that I'm doing it. But if you have that payroll, or if you have a certain, tier program that you want to start, go ahead and kind of create that first, and then find those interns that can fit in those tiers.
Awesome. Love, love, love that. Love, love, love that. So let's talk about body language, right? Alexanne over there is our body language expert. And so what are some nonverbal communications that can have an impact on our business, on our clients? Like, if you're like this, or like, what's going on there?
There are a lot of myths. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
We can.
There are a lot of myths around body language, and that's the first thing I like to do, is to bust the myths. And this is one of them. Doesn't necessarily mean you're closed.
Girl, thank you. Thank you.
Really.
Because when men do it on a picture, they're in charge.
Exactly. And there are a lot of actual body poses that indicate power versus body poses that indicate, Superwoman is one of them. So it's easier to do this in person, and yet it's just such an exciting thing. When we are talking about bringing people in, or Sarah was talking about, hiring people, or you're looking at the endotypes, or you're bringing interns in, how do you know from what you see if that person is telling the truth or not? And there are all kinds of little facial giveaways. They're called micro expressions. I'm like, okay, yeah, right. I forgot what they were. Micro expressions. And those little giveaways are huge when you're hiring someone. There's also something I really want to talk about. The other myth I want to cover is people say when you're looking up to the right that you're telling a lie. Not true. People who look up, when your eyes are looking up, either from the left or the right, you're accessing the pictures in your brain. That's all you're doing. Anyone looking up is accessing the pictures in their brain. When people are looking, not everyone, it's not across the board, but when most people are looking to the right up, they're looking into their futures. They're constructing something in their brain. And sometimes you'll ask a question, their eyes will dart to the left while they look in the past, then they'll dart to the right while they figure out what they're going to tell you. You have to know how all of this works in order to begin to put it into play. Another big part is congruency with what someone is saying. So you can ask a question and have someone give an answer. Yesterday, I was asking someone, how is this going for you? And she said, it's really great. I'm like, oh, really? Your mouth is telling me it's great. Your head is telling me it's not. We have a tendency to mind read. We get a feeling inside. That's the first thing. Pay attention to your gut. Your gut is telling you something. When you can see what you're looking at, when you know what you're looking at, and it goes in conjunction with your gut, you really can start listening and unraveling underneath the words, the language that people are saying. So this whole thing, I really love it here. I'm having a great time. That's another myth on the congruency. It's something that we overlook, and yet it's something that you can check. You can literally stop a person when you see that and say, hey, your mouth said, I love it. Your head said, no, I don't. And they'll laugh 9 times out of 10. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, really? Or someone will say, inside myself, I was thinking, I can't believe how much I love this. And that's absolutely congruent. But if you've got someone saying, I love you, and they really don't, what's going on underneath there? So the body language is incredibly important as you're working with people. Job interviews, what's someone doing while they're waiting for the interview? Are they poked down? Are their shoulders back? Are they strong? Are they powerful? What are they saying and how are they saying it? So I can go on and on with this subject. It's one of my favorites, obviously. I'm passionate about it. And I'm passionate about teaching it, but it plays a huge piece in leadership, both the communication you're delivering and the communication you're listening to. And it's important to know your body language first.
Right. So with that, how can we be mindful of our body language when we are communicating with a client or a colleague or something, so that we make sure we're not giving off bad vibes?
Just a few of those things that I already told you about. If you do find yourself crossing your arms, it's important to recognize someone will interpret that as being closed, because we've all been told it's closed, right? Uncross those arms. There are a lot of different body positions. I'm going to just back up here so you can see some stuff. This one, you'll see people stand like this all the time. And this, in the industry, we call covering your nasty bits. This is, I'm nervous, I'm concerned, I don't want you to see what's underneath me, I don't want you to know. And so I'm going to protect myself here so that you can't really get in close with me. This is the most difficult body language to hold. You're stacked like boxes, one on top of the other. You're completely balanced. Your energy's in your solar plexus. And from this space, you're wide open, delivering a message and or receiving a question. This is one of the most powerful stances that any leader can adapt or can adopt. It's incredibly powerful. So there's a whole bunch of them. And, I just love to share all of this, but I hope that helps a little bit.
That's awesome. The hardest part for me is I always think about Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. And he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm being interviewed and I don't know what to do with my hands. Right. And so for me, I'm like, what do I do with my hands? Right.
Just natural, whatever you do with your hands. And now we have Zoom hands. We have a whole bunch of people now who gesture up here who never did before.
Yeah.
But now, and so it's become part of our culture now.
Yeah.
Where you used to gesture down here, now you're going to gesture up here because we do that with Zoom. So that's been an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah,
I love it. It's Zoom
translates into the office.
Yeah, I know. It's Zoom hands and it's Zoom eyes, right? Where you're like, what?
Oh yeah, and I forget to look at the camera. Yeah, look at the camera. I'm like, we're all looking at each other and we're looking at ourselves when we're talking, and I was like, oh, look at the camera, look at the camera. Oh, it did it again.
It did it again, sweetheart. We can't hear you.
Eddie, yeah.
Like, does anybody wave goodbye on a Zoom?
Yeah, I do.
I
go like
before,
this.
Right? We just go, bye, see you later.
I do devil hands. Yeah, no, this is such an interesting topic. I love this, Alexanne, because I think there are so many things that we overlook, or like you said, we don't listen to the messages that our gut is telling us. Elaine knows how I feel about this. I'm very, very intuitive. I very much listen to my gut, and I'm usually probably 90% right, but I give everyone an opportunity. But I listen, and if my gut is saying something is off, I just make a mental note about that, especially when it comes to body language and what someone is saying, like the words. There's like a quote from a movie, are you listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth? And I'm thinking, I'm listening and I'm looking.
That's a huge skill, Paige, because there are some numbers. They're not carved in stone either. You'll hear this all the time, that words are 7%, tone of voice is 38%, and body language is 55%. Those numbers fluctuate. It's not carved in stone. That's the first thing to know. The second thing to know, that as much as 93% of what you have to say gets communicated to the unconscious mind, gets communicated at the unconscious level. So we're busy crafting words, which is wonderful because we want to say accurately what we have to say. And yet, how much of that delivery of the words can be interpreted based on your own personal life experiences? We've all experienced this in reading an email that someone sends that we interpret a certain way based on our life experience, past emails or current emails or something that's happened to us, when the intention of that person was something completely different. It's just a fascinating, communication and linguistics is fascinating.
Yes, it is. Katie has an interesting quote. She said in the chat, she says, your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yes, I love that quote. Who said that? I just put it on a slide the other day and I can't remember who said it.
Yeah. And then Melissa was saying it's been difficult to have conversations with people in masks because we miss half of what they're, because we can't read their faces, right, as much. So I totally get that. Totally get that.
Have you noticed that friendly people smile with their eyes more when they have a mask on? They're smiling with their eyes really strongly. You'll be in the grocery store, someone will really squint a smile eye with a mask on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's
masks
hard.
are
Like,
the
I want them to know that I'm like trying to be friendly and like, hi, I see you. Because if I just smile normal, can't really tell, you know. So
yeah, that's another thing too, is that a fake smile versus a real smile. So
right.
fake smile, the eyes are really the windows to the soul, and those eyes show you when that smile is really genuine.
Yeah, love that. Okay, Miss Sarah Michelle, we have a question for you, my darling. I know that with being a CEO of our business, the C-suite, we are the C-suite, and you have a phrase, the COATTO. Can you tell us what that is and how it impacts our ability to run an effective business?
Yes, I can. Hello, everyone. I refer to that position as the chief officer of all of the things.
I love that.
And when you are a solopreneur, I love that. I think it was the other Sarah that was talking about how there's always other ways to have teams, and I totally believe in that. But when you're a solopreneur, you're really the chief decision maker for all of the things. And a lot of what I found when I switched over from the corporate world to working with small businesses was that small business owners were struggling. There was so much struggle, and everything I saw in the marketing was this desperation of like, please, please hire me. I'll give it to you for free. Just let me work. Just let me show you what I can do. And when I was trying to figure out why there was so much struggle in the small business world that I didn't see in the corporate world, I realized it's because people were trying to do several different full-time roles and they weren't realizing them. So if you decide to start a law firm or you decide to start a coaching business, maybe you're a really great coach, but you're not just a coach. You also have to be the CEO of your business. You also have to be the person deciding what's my business model? What's my revenue strategy? Am I going to hire? What are all these decisions I'm going to make? You also have to be the chief marketing officer. How am I going to tell people what I do? What's my brand? What kind of messaging and tone am I going to use? What audience am I talking to? You have to become the chief financial officer. Again, what's my revenue strategy? What am I going to spend on? How am I going to set up a business bank account? How am I going to balance in QuickBooks or however I'm doing this to make sure that I'm doing my taxes correctly? And then you have to be the chief operations officer. How am I going to structure this business? What are my hours? Do I have hours? Am I available all the time? Am I available certain times? What's the company culture? So this is at least 4 full-time roles that in corporate life are getting paid probably between $70,000 and $250,000 a year. And solopreneurs are struggling often to make $10,000 to $20,000 in a year. And so that mindset is huge. And when you are the chief officer of all of the things, even though you're outsourcing and you're finding people to help with your finance, you're finding people to help with the marketing, you're finding a VA to help with the operations, you still have to be the person who's in charge of all those decisions until you're at a point where you really are hiring an equal partner into your C-suite. So knowing that just changes the way that we look at our business, because now we realize we have to structure the decision making, and then we have to decide, are we going to do this? Are we going to outsource it? And often as a solopreneur, we're really bad employers and we're really bad employees. And if we think about it in that context, if I were to tell my boss, you know, I just don't feel like charging a client this rate, I think I'm going to barter instead. Or, I got really caught up in Netflix. Like, I decided to take a nap. I don't think we'd have a job to come back to the next day. And likewise, if we are an employee and we come to work every day and our boss says, I don't really know what to tell you to do, just figure it out, make money, and you have no job description, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know who you're talking to, and every day you have to figure out your job description and then do the job, you're going to quit that job. So I think it's super important to think of ourselves in both those roles and to come up with a plan to delegate and to figure out the structure that is going to be sustainable so that we don't drive ourselves crazy.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Just go ahead. Sarah Michelle's just awesome.
I know. So interestingly, I heard this one time, I think it was Nicole Lewis-Keeber way back at my very first celebration. And she had talked about, if we treated ourselves, like if we were the, an employee of our business, how awful. I mean, would we ever ask an employee to work as long as we do? Would we ever expect an employee to not take a day off, to just keep working? And it's awful that we do that to ourselves, but would we ask someone else to do that? And when you're talking about being the C-suite of your own business, I love the idea of being able to create the plan first. I feel like you can't just sit at a computer and not know what the hell you're going to do that day. Like, what's the plan? What's the intention? Are you doing income producing activities today, or are you doing admin work? Are you creating content? What is the plan? Just going to a computer and not having a plan and then working on what all day long and then wonder why you didn't get anything done is because did you actually have a plan? So I love that you're talking about that, is like, you can't just go to a computer and say, figure it out, because we would never do that to someone else, but why do we do that to ourselves?
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say, it's really not sustainable. And I think that a lot of times I see small businesses, they're in such a hurry to make income.
Yes.
That they panic. And when you're operating in panic mode, it's not sustainable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as much as it might seem stressful to take a step back and work on your business, where you're like, oh my God, I can't work on my business. I need clients. Like, clients are the ones with the money. But if you don't take the time to come up with a plan, you're going to draw out that panic for years.
Yeah.
And it's not going to move. And it's kind of like shooting an arrow. You got to pull back for it to go forward. And so taking that time to actually figure out what you're doing. I always compare it to building a house. Like, nobody wants to draw the blueprint. Nobody wants to level the ground. Nobody wants to build the foundation. They just want the pretty house. If you try to do that, you might eventually get a house, but it's going to take you twice as long. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to spend way more money than you need to. Mm-hmm. If you have a blueprint and you have the tools and you have the expertise you need, you're going to be able to actually build the house that you want. And in the grand scheme of things, it's going to take less time and less money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what Francine was saying earlier, that it's about the being and not just the doing. I think when we have a business and we are wearing all these hats, we're like, do, because that's what creates the money. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily what creates the money. You have to have that foundation of who do I want to be? What are the standards and the vision of this business, and build from inside out. And just trust that is, that you're sufficient and you have everything that you need.
Yep.
Right. So Melissa, I have a question then. We're talking about this. How do you know when it's time to scale up?
Well, it depends. It depends on the business. So for me, what I like to talk to my clients about is the first phase of business is like proof of concept. We're just getting out there. We are meeting as many people as possible, making offers everywhere, and helping as many people as we can. And then we come to that place in our business that we are full, right? We are full up in our current capacity, the way we are currently offering our services or products. I work mainly with service providers, so I talk about services. And once we get to that point, then we get a chance to make a decision. And it's like, the decision at that point is, well, how do I want to, and this goes back to being, how do I want to be in my business? Do I want to be, there's a lot of different ways you can scale, right? Do I want to be hiring people? Do I want to be working on my own, but just raising my prices? But we have to come up with a strategy and a vision for addressing demand, because if the demand continues, we need to figure out how we're going to be addressing that. So we decide, okay, well, for me currently, I'm a one-on-one coach, right? And once I fill up my coaching practice, what do I do next? Well, what is my vision? Because, and one thing I want to say that Sarah, just reiterate what Sarah said, is we are not scaling. I work with solopreneurs. We're not scaling like Fortune 500 companies. We have a whole different way of scaling. And so we are scaling based on what our vision is, what the lifestyle is that we want, the kind of money that we want to make. And so in thinking about those things, that's where we come to that decision of how we want to scale. So yeah, and then you make your decision, you make your plan, and you implement it, and you grow that demand again. And it's just kind of a continuous cycle. And once that demand gets full, you think, okay, now what's the next step? Do I want to have a course, or am I doing more groups or whatever? And it's a continuous cycle of scaling up. Yeah.
Love that. I think, scaling up can look different for a lot of different businesses, right? And so figuring out for yourself, what does scaling up actually look like? What is the big goal? What is the big dream? Not just figuring it out as you go. As much as I love that, and I've done that in the past with my photography business, I figured it out as I went. I just wanted to take the pretty pictures, and I know what the hell I was doing running a business. I posted this the other day. God, I wish I would have known about business coaches when I started a photography business back in 2001. You're right. Like, oh my God, things would have I would have not wasted so much time trying to figure it out had I stopped and paused and said, what's the end goal here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there? Right? It's like having that blueprint, that map. And we can't, if we're building our house, which I love the analogy Sarah Michelle uses, because I use that analogy too, is that you can't build up the walls and you can't put up a roof until you have a blueprint and a solid foundation, and you do all of the work first, then start building, right? You have to have those structures in place. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just wasting a whole lot of time and a whole lot of energy.
Yeah, and you can keep it simple. I know for myself and a lot of my clients, we resist planning. I do a 3 and 4 year plan with my clients. We resist planning because we're like, well, I don't know if this is going to work, or I don't want to fail, or what if it doesn't go that way? And so what I do is I have a 4-year plan that's super simple, just like how you see your business growing in each of the phases based on what you want to make and the lifestyle and the vision that you have. Mm-hmm. And then revisiting that every 6 months and just considering the plan to be in pencil. Like you have an end in mind. So yeah, absolutely. Every decision that you're making as the CEO mind in your business is having that end in mind. But at the same time, we don't exactly know how we're going to get there. And that is totally fine. Just release that. We don't know how. It's like when we have GPS, right? And we set our GPS to go to grandma's house, and we have the overview. And, but yet once we get on the road, sometimes there's a highway closed, or we have to take a different turn and go a different direction. We know we're going to end up at grandma's house, but we don't always know exactly how we're going to get there and all the stops along the way. And it's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're so right, Melissa. And it's fine that you have this plan, but it's also fine and great when you can get help doing that. Right. And so I want to bring Pauline into the conversation because she brings a lot to the table in the world of having help, OBMs, you know, all that kind of support. And Pauline, maybe you can just explain to people, I know I'm throwing out all this vernacular, just explain to people what an OBM is and how it can actually help people in their business.
Yes, I'm loving this conversation, ladies. I am like so fired up. I love it. So an online business manager, you can call it online business manager, integrator, that's trademark term, a COO, director of operations, call it many, many names. You know, bottom line is we get she's done, as Elaine says, right? We are the people that execute, and we are the partners of the visionary. So everyone is a vision. So I have an agency. I'm a CEO of my agency, but I'm also a COO to all of my clients. So I always joke with my team that I'm crazy visionary with the agency, right? And with my coaching, I'm like, I want things done yesterday. I'm crazy. With my clients, I'm the one who's the bad guy. I'm the one who's like, hold up. You said this was the priority for this quarter, but you know, you're doing something else, shiny object syndrome, you know? So an online business manager is someone who partners up with the CEO, and they can be known by any operational names, and their service providers, and they allow the dreams and the vision of the CEO to happen. And they're the ones who are in the weeds of the business. They are the details people. They're the ones who are managing teams, they're managing projects, they're managing the systems. If things don't happen, they got to know what to do, and not necessarily the CEO. And ultimately, they allow the CEO to take a vacation. So that is what an online business manager is. They just manage the online business of CEOs.
Awesome. So when do you know it's time? Well, you kind of talked a little bit about this with Sarah Stokes, but for you, when is it time for you to say, like, when is it time to hire help? Like to branch out and like bring in that first person for you. When is that? When does that happen?
To be honest, as soon as you can.
Okay. So even at the beginning, you're saying hire help as soon as you can.
As soon as you can, even before you can afford to.
Okay.
Actually, if you can afford to, you've hired too late. Interns, great. You know, we've already had this conversation about, you know, hiring interns. But if you really want to play it safe, because I know that a lot of service providers, for example, they are very much, you know, doing things by the book. If there's a process and a system that you've done repetitively in your business, you can outsource that. You know, that's when you can start to create standard operating procedures, hire the first person, onboard them with an SOP, and that's it. That saves you time. So the bottom, you know, I like to be very direct in my questions, but yeah.
This is great. Keep going, Pauline.
Basically, as soon as you open your business, if you can hire a VA to do your inbox, to do your admin stuff, so you can focus on your zone of genius.
Yes.
I promise you will grow very, very quickly. Because then you need to be the CEO. You need to be out there, visible, sales. You don't have to be stuck on Canva doing the graphics. Don't do that. Hire us out.
Girl, Canva. I love Canva, but I will hire. Elaine knows.
She will just say, Elaine, will you make this for me?
Do this for me. Or Shauna, create this for me. Yeah. I don't have time. You're so right. Keep going, Paula.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I don't know how long 3 hours has flown by and I'm on Canva doing one graphic. I don't know. How did this happen? 3 hours. I'm just moving little flowers. I don't know. So yeah, as soon as you can, hire someone doing your inbox. The worst thing the CEO has is like an inbox of 300 unread emails.
Yeah.
My goodness, please get a VA to help you. And most CEOs actually, and I always say this, and you've mentioned it, I think, Elaine or Sarah, and that's to hire help in the house. I advise a lot of my CEO clients to just, there's a bit of like guilt happening of like, oh, well, if I hire you, I should be doing the housework. Just hire someone to help you outside of the business.
Yeah.
And I talk about, in my masterclass, I talk about getting your CEO time back. And Sarah and, Melissa already alluded to it earlier, which is you need that time that only you as the CEO can do, which is the strategy and the sales and the visibility and the PR. And that's really how you will attract your clients that you love, and you can charge higher ticket the more you increase your brand equity. And only you as a CEO can do that. You cannot outsource. I mean, you can outsource a PR manager, but you still got to show up and do the podcasts and the summits
Exactly.
and the talks.
Yeah.
So yes, so it's all about getting really intentional from the very beginning that you start your business.
Yeah.
That you are going to be visible, and that something needs to come off your plate, mostly the administrative tasks, right? The in the weed stuff, so that you can show up and be the salesperson, because you really have to be the salesperson in the first few years of your business. No one else can do that but you. Yeah.
Love this.
I'm like, you're speaking my language when it comes to visibility. I think so many people want to pass that particular task off. And at the beginning stages of your business, or if you are transitioning to something else, it is more than ever critical that you are the face of that transition and that you are visible. Man, I love it. So let's talk a little bit more about being that founder and being that CEO. And I know Otisa has a really interesting philosophy about a founder syndrome. Maybe you can share a little bit with us about what that is and how we can move through that.
Yeah. So with founder syndrome, that there's so many different definitions, but to make it really quick, it's when, a founder, you have this vision, right? It's mapped out, you know where you're going, you have your plan, but you get resistant to change. You get resistant to new ideas. You get resistant when you hire people. You get nervous when they start changing things on you because you have it in your brain of where you're going. And that might deter folks from the plan or from the vision. And what's funny is I have gotten to observe this in different forms, like, working as an HR manager in companies, I got to watch, CEOs struggle with this, and me having to say, yeah, I understand that this makes you nervous, get over it. And, because you're hiring people who actually are going to help you and going to take your business somewhere that you probably didn't even think or plan for. And that is okay. And so I try to work with folks on, founder syndromes will happen. I've actually experienced it myself with my interns sometimes, or when I have a contractor for graphic design, they do something and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let them do that. It makes me uncomfortable, but I don't want to spend 18 hours on Canva moving a flower over, right? And this person has this expertise, and maybe she sees something that I can't see. And I also always tell people when I look at outsourcing, I look for people who are better than me, who are actually stronger in a skill set. Because again, I want the best. I want to be wowed, and I want them to take me on this journey that I have a plan. I have my compass. I always tell people, I have my compass, I have my map, but sometimes there's someone else that sees this future, this adventure that I don't see because I'm so focused on following this plan. And so founder syndrome it could come up and it can bite you in the butt, and it can also be an obstacle and a challenge. And I try to, work with people on learning how to let go. There's some things you have to just let go. There's some outcomes you have to let go in order to grow and in order to scale, right? And when you're working with different contractors or you're working with employees and staff, again, a lot of the times they're going to take you further than you even imagine. And sometimes, experimenting. I always tell folks, I like to, look at things as an experiment. Because, again, like if someone has this grand idea that before shooting that down, let's just try it out. What's the worst thing that could happen? She wants to create this graphic for my blog and I don't like the way it looks on my phone, but it looks great on the website. Am I going to have her redo this completely? Or are we just going to experiment and see how it goes for 6 months? You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of the times founder syndrome, it's not like a terrible thing or something to completely avoid. I just want folks to be aware that it will happen. And it may happen slowly. But to recognize it in yourself first, know who you are, like Laura kicked us off, like know who you are, recognize those signs when you are, shutting people down or you're getting defensive when people bring ideas to you. And instead of reacting, go within and say, oh, am I just nervous because this idea could take me somewhere else I didn't dream of? Or, oh my gosh, the idea of someone running my website without me micromanaging them makes me nervous. Well, then what steps can you take to ease that anxiety or ease your nerves? And get comfortable with someone else taking care of your baby. Our businesses can be our babies, but don't you trust the babysitter when you go out to date night, right? And you come home and everything's okay. The house is not on fire. Everything's okay. So I let people know that founder syndrome is just being resistant to change in a long story short. And you have to think about how you can show up and work through that resistance and what skills you can learn about yourself and how to work through those challenges.
Yes, I love
Fantastic.
that. I love that we're kind of getting into this, and I want to bring Francine in to talk about the fear, because the fear of, like you were saying, Otisa, what's the worst that can happen, right? So how do we push through this fear of growing a team, growing a business, trying new things, making, you know, I know Francine talks about deciding from fear or if it's a conscious choice. And so Francine, do you want to chime in on this conversation and really help us overcome that, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? What's so wrong?
Unpack all of that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of women that I hear just from hearing your conversations, a lot of us are very intuitive, right? So like, I think the biggest difference is like feeling it in your body, right? Like when I'm like this, there's a fear thing happening, right? Like this morning, my sprinkler system didn't go on and we just had a landscaper out here and I called my husband and I could feel myself getting aggravated with him. And I was like, oh my God, the lawn's gonna die because I can see it, right? And I was like, okay, stop. Right? We'll figure it out. Right? But I could feel it in my body because I was having a nice, lovely morning and then instantly something shifted. Right? So recognizing that. And then fear, I use this example of fear isn't real. And I found this out years ago when I decided to jump out of a plane, and not because I'm an adrenaline junkie or anything. It was part of my journey. If I could jump out of a plane, I could do anything. And the guy said to me, so why are you doing this? And I said, well, I'm afraid of heights. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're afraid of falling. And that was like mind blowing for me, right? Because like what I thought I was afraid of was not really what the fear was, right? I've been in a tall building. I'm not afraid of that. I've been in an airplane, don't love it, but right, it's the falling part. And I think when we really can sit and figure out what we're really afraid of and get to the root of that, that's where then we can start making conscious choices about what to do next. But I think what we think we're afraid of is really almost never what the fear is really about.
Yeah. Laura, do you want to chime in on your doorbell theory there? Because I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on fear and endotypes because we have some predictability in the things that we get protective of, get fear based on with our personality types. But I think that fear is just the doorbell, right? So when my doorbell goes off, my first thought is, ooh, which of my Amazon packages got here? And I get excited. My dog does not get excited. Every time that doorbell goes off, my dog thinks that it is an intruder. It is something terrible, freaks out. She loves guests, but she has yet to realize that the doorbell means guests. The doorbell is a good thing. And I know that there are other people out there that get anxiety every time their doorbell goes off. Fear is just the body's way and our nervous system's way of going, I have a message for you today. And if we can shortcut and get to the message, fear like I've ran people through, I'm creating a fear framework for the endotypes. And I've ran people through their fear framework and they're like, oh, it's gone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it doesn't have to stick around and be with you for, like, people don't keep ringing the door after you answer it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
And I think what Laura just said is a true point, right? It's a message, right? Because this morning when that happened to me, I was like, it was like 10:15 my time. I had 45 minutes. I had to be here by 11, still had to do my makeup, right? So it was the, oh no, I'm going to be late, right? It was the, oh, I didn't plan my morning well enough to allot for a possible issue, right? And then I had to sit and go, what is this telling me right now? Oh, okay, I'm good. You know what? The lawn will be fine. I got to finish my morning. But it's your body's response to a message. It's the message. It's great. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we would love if you have any questions for our panelists to drop them into the chat right now. And so while you're gathering your questions, I have a question. We'll just do it as a round robin. If anybody wants to pipe in, just unmute yourself. I would love for you to share with everyone, what is the one question that you think every leader should ask themselves in the morning?
I'll do that.
Go for it.
Go for it, Francine.
As a leader, we need to be doing the work ourselves, right? We need to be, you cannot, there's a Jack Welch quote that says, you know, before you're a leader, success is about growing yourself. And then when you become a leader, success is about growing others, right? And I have worked with so many leaders that just show up and manage staff. They're not leading, right? Like there's a difference between leading and managing, but I think doing your own work so that you can then, and I think it's important to, I think it was Otisa that said, being okay with somebody not doing it the way that you want, right? I remember when I became a new leader, I was like, no, I don't want it that way. No, I don't. And then finally I was like, you know what? Their way's okay, right? Because if I keep doing their job and my job, I'm not going to be able to move forward, right? So being okay with that.
Yeah, real quick tag on that. I always tell folks this quote that I was told when I used to work in radio back in college, and the director would say, I don't care how the sausage is made as long as it's tasting delicious when I eat it. And so that's what I tell every single person I train or any person I'm working with my clients. I tell them, does it really matter how the sausage is made?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what keeps me and keeps other folks like remembering why we're here, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, where she says, paint done. Right? What does done look like? And does the process of getting done really matter? Is it right? So paint done. And I'm like, I just think that is a brilliant little phrase to use anytime you are communicating with someone about what you need, is to paint done for them so that everyone is clear and knows what the expectations are. I love that.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to share?
So I think a lot about, as a solopreneur, you know, I might say, well, I'm not in leadership because I don't have a team or whatever. I mean, I do have some contractors that work with me, but we as business women are all thought leaders at the very least, right? So my question that I always like to ask myself is, what is the thought leadership that I am leading today? Rather than like, what do my clients need? Or, I mean, I do ask that too, but what is the thought leadership that I want to, you know, offer as part of my value today?
Love that.
I'll say one thing because it helps with the fear. So we have to lead ourselves first, period. First of all, we have to lead ourselves first. So the question I ask myself in my journal every single day is, how would my highest self show up today, especially when I'm in fear? Because every time we come to that new level, all of our junk shows up, all the patterns, all the things. And so when I ask that, how would my highest self show up today? Because it's going to change, right? If I've got a big thing, it's going to look a little different than if it's my day to plan. And it helps me every time. I'm like, okay, at least I can then show up as her a little bit more. We may not hit it out of the park, but I'm gonna be better than if I didn't ask that question at all. So that helps every time I'm afraid.
Love
I
that.
think kind of along the lines of this conversation, one question I think is really important to ask is, what do I actually want? Because fear is really close with resistance. And I think it's important to pay attention to that, because a lot of times when we're running a business, we think about scaling up and we think, okay, well, scaling up means I have to make 6 figures, 8 figures. I have to be running this. And internally, it might not be what we want. There's a lot of small business owners who want to be small business owners, or who don't really want a business. They want a very lucrative hobby. And that is totally okay. There is nothing wrong with having a very lucrative hobby, especially if you're a one-to-one service-based. You're never going to be able to scale beyond what you can do, your capacity. And even if you become this amazing thought leader where people are paying you, you know, $10,000 per person, and that's how you're making your income, it's still going to be a lot of work. there's a lot of work that is put into actually becoming a business. And so I think it's really important to ask, what do I actually want? And there's a huge difference between wanting business revenue and wanting spending money. They're not the same.
Yeah.
As we grow our business revenue, you got to spend more to make more. So your personal income is probably going to look the same, even if you're at the 20,000, 100,000, million mark, because that percentage wise is going to go back in your business. So for me, that's been a really important question for myself and my clients, saying, what is it that you actually want? And if you find yourself resistant to something, is it because you are afraid? In which case we need to work through that and push yourself and move to the other side. Or is it because you don't actually want it? And if you don't actually want it, you're going to be subconsciously sabotaging yourself the whole time.
Yep.
And if you're fighting against yourself, you're not going to move. So if you feel like you're in that place of tension, that's a really good time to check in and say, do I actually want this? What do I want my life to look like? And are the decisions that I'm making today moving me towards that, or do I need to make some changes?
Yes, so much yes. Pauline, what did you want to add?
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I want all great points. My neck is starting to hurt from all the nodding, you know? So I wanted to just, one of the things I learned, you know, as women, we're perfectionists, high achievers, you know? One of the things that I have started to ask myself is, how can I give myself grace today? Because I mentor a lot of brand new entrepreneurs, lots of them moms, you know, lots of them women. My goodness, the perfectionism is real. And I think by asking that question, it allows us to just give ourselves a little bit of a break. Because as you know, entrepreneurs, we're like personal development junkies, and sometimes it's okay to take a step back and just give yourself grace that the day you didn't quite stick to the calendar, you know, you didn't quite close that sales goal. You were probably a little bit too impatient with that contractor. So I've learned to ask that question, how can I give myself grace today? So I just wanted to add that in.
Love that. Alexanne, what did you want to say?
You know, I wanted to go back to the fear piece, and the other half of what I do is neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And so many times the piece that, like what Sarah was talking about, that the fear comes up and then there's resistance. So much of that was decisions created at the unconscious level at the earliest part of your life. And we drag our past with us into the future as we make a decision. When you're facing fear, you could be facing something that you decided before you even had the ability to speak in language. And I love to give this simple example. When you're in the first grade and the teacher asks a question and you know the answer, you got it, you're jumping up and down, you're the donkey in Shrek, pick me, pick me. The teacher picks you, you give the answer, you get it wrong, the whole class laughs. What decision do you make at that moment in time about raising your hand? Then we fast forward, I'm in front of a room of 200 people and I say, show of hands, how many of you ever blah, blah, blah? And I see this. Is because everybody was in the first grade and they all made the same decision. So as we're facing fear, in addition to knowing and recognizing what it is, there's a real power to having gone back and rewired the decision you made at that unconscious level at that early time in life.
So good. Love that. Laura, what did you want to add?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm glad that Alexanne talked about languaging and kind of how perspective shifting, right? For me, it used to be that every morning that I woke up, I'd go, what do I have to do today? And now I ask myself, what do I get to do today?
Mm-hmm.
Because I freaking love the work that I do. Mm-hmm. And are there some parts of it that I love a little less, or that are the challenges, right, that we get through? Yeah, absolutely. But when I take a look at my schedule, I'm like, what do I get to do today? Mm-hmm. And that perspective shift just changes so much of how you view everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 yes to all of that. So we had a question come through the chat. MJ asked, who are you today and who do you want to be? Who wants to tackle that question? That's a good one. Very insightful.
I'll jump in.
All
I'm,
right.
I'm hearing that back from that space of a human being versus a human doing. And I think we're all coming to the same space. I mean, we're saying the same thing in so many different ways, which also it's your voice that gets heard and resonates with someone out there. Yet, you know, it's who am I doing versus who am I being? And really taking that moment, like Francine said, going inside, really checking who you are and who you get to be through the rest of the day. I don't know if that answered it, but.
No, I think that's great. We have another group question that we could do another round robin with, which is sharing a struggle or a challenge that you faced and overcame when going through this journey of entrepreneurship, either from solopreneur to having a team. What's been the biggest lesson for you that really has stuck with you from on this journey?
So I can share, I think, because this was a struggle for me for a really long time. Naturally, I have a powerful presence, right? So people would show up and they'd be like, I want to help and support you on this path. I want to be part of this. They'd go. And I'd say, great. And then because they thought their job was to become a mini me. And I thought that was my job too, is to make them a mini me. And I didn't understand how to really utilize people and nurture people to bring them into who they are, to be able to be supportive, right? And that sometimes those people that show up and go, I want to be just like you. I want to help you, aren't supposed to be the ones that help us. Sometimes they are not the people that we need. It's very flattering at first, but they are not the people that we actually need to be able to help us. They have a different goal and a different dream to be able to go live. So, so I think for me, for the longest time, it was actually understanding how to utilize who people really were and how to utilize them in their skill set. And then what parts of my job were not for me to do, for me to offload onto other people.
That
wow.
is good.
I know, I was going to say, that is really insightful. I think that was one of the things, when you can learn that as a leader, that just makes your job so much easier. Learning what the, personal motivations of people are. I'm pretty sure other people have it, but we have something called the Fight for Air climb, where you climb up to a top of a building in your city for the American Lung Association. And one year when I was in corporate, I had 27 climbers on my team and 10 volunteers. And my husband's like, how the heck do you get people to climb 47 flights of stairs and still be friends with you on Monday? Right. And so it was based on utilizing what their motivations were. And it was my job as a leader to be able to find out what that was. One person who was a runner, I pitched him with, don't you want to do a different type of challenge, right? Fitness challenge for yourself. Someone else who was a young woman, I said, oh my goodness, girl, those firefighters are there and they're running up there's so many cute men, you want to be there, right? So you got to find out what the motivations are for people. And that's what really helps bring it to the next level, right? And also people who didn't want to go, but wanted to volunteer, or their child had asthma, right? So really listening to your teams or the colleagues that you're working with and bringing that together for the greater good. That is what really makes a great leader and not just a manager, like Francine was saying, right? Mm-hmm. So All of these things are so important. I would love if anyone has any questions from the audience. If you'd like to pop up, just raise your hand and you can ask the panelists. Or if anyone else has something that they would like to share of a challenge that they overcame, we would love to highlight that now. Oh, it looks like Pauline might have her mic off.
Hello. So I don't think it's overcome yet. I think you're constantly overcoming the state of in the fear of scarcity, the scarcity mindset, because we all left, jobs, or something happened that we became entrepreneur. And employment before COVID, of course, was seen as kind of stable, the stable route, and you start a business not for the stability, but to do your own thing. And I think the constant reminder that I have to keep telling myself is that it's going to be okay, and to try to get out of that scarcity mindset. If something bad happens, you lose a client, or you let go of a client, or a client has to let go of you because of whatever financial situation they have. And I think it's a constant, it's an everyday thing, trying to come from a place of abundance. And one of the things that I learned very early on was to not take clients that were not in alignment with my mission, vision, and core values. And when you're in a place of scarcity, especially I mentor a lot of people who are in this place of scarcity because they still don't have clients, they don't have income. So they just take in any client they want because they're operating from that scarcity mindset. They don't trust that the universe, or whatever will give them the ideal client that they want, that will give them that financial security, that will give them, the alignment with their mission, vision, and core values. And I think it's something that all entrepreneurs and all leaders have to really practice, because if you're operating from a scarcity mindset, it will trickle down eventually to who you're leading. And the culture of your company. So I think it's something that's constantly I have to really train, listening to abundance meditations and all of these things. And I'd love to know what your experience are, because I know all entrepreneurs have that.
Yes. That is I'm so happy you brought that topic up, Pauline, because that's brilliant. We've all had those clients that we've taken some part of our journey where we're just like, why did I take that client? Right? What was I thinking? It is never worth the money. Look at Elaine's like, yeah, double hands. It's never worth the money to do that. And we've also had those clients that we actually had to fire, right? Once you build that confidence in your abilities and what your services are or your products are, there are times when it's okay to fire someone. So it's always a constant struggle. I think most entrepreneurs feel that way. So I am so excited you brought that up. Tracy actually had a question. Any advice on how much of your business that you would share with your team? I want to be transparent, however discerning, to what I share. Any boundaries that you've set to help you determine that? Good question.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Start us off. Great question. And from an HR standpoint, I could look at it different ways. From did they sign a contract with you? Did they, in that contract, is there anything about confidentiality? All those different pieces. If they're an employee, did they get an offer letter? Is there a handbook? Is there anything kind of giving them any policies that they need to adhere to? If they've signed all of those things, then I would start thinking of what information is going to help them with their role. What information is needed to propel them forward to be successful in their position. And that's kind of how I personally use to make decisions when it comes to what I am sharing. And there's some things that you might want to just keep to yourself, maybe your business partner, or maybe your successful squad, whatever you want to call your group of ladies or friends that you maybe dive into some nitty gritty of your business. But I would really just be mindful of, is this information helpful? Is this information harmful? Because sometimes people overshare. And I used to be one of those folks that gives you way more information than you need, which actually makes you more nervous or scared to do the job at hand. But I would, if you're coming from a place of love and light and joy, and you're just saying, you know what, this information is just not really needed for their role right now. This is a piece of information that maybe after a few months of working with me, or maybe after a year, they get to know some of these aspects. I think In business, I think it makes sense that some information that you keep to yourself, you know, especially if it's not going to help them in their role and it's not going to propel them forward. You're going to do them a disservice by sharing too much. So I have this conversation with managers and leaders as well. Like a lot of times managers will share information because they just want to be, transparent, and they just want to be approachable. And I'm like, but now you have put worries that are supposed to stay in your head onto them. And now they're worried about, you know, how much money is going to happen or how much money is going to be brought in. And they're worried if they're going to get paid because you told them that the grant didn't come through and la, 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 and you're a nonprofit. So like, you have to be kind of mindful of those pieces of information that you're going to share with your team. As long as it's helpful and it's going to propel them forward, go ahead and share with them. And also don't dangle carrots. That's one thing I really wanted to say is some people dangle carrots, meaning if you do this, you get this. Don't do that. That's just shady. And I've had to tell people, I think folks think that that's an extrinsic way of motivating you. Like, I'll give you a bonus of 500 if you do this. Be careful, because not everyone thinks that is a great motivator. You know, if you want to give them a bonus, give them a damn bonus because they're doing a great job. Don't make it an ultimatum.
Don't make it about the pizza party.
Yes.
Yeah. Does ever have any of those pizza parties?
Pizza party.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I was going to say on sharing, Odessa, you covered so much of what I was going to say. But the other thing to look at is, why do you want to share this? Because see, sometimes we want to share it because we're dealing with fear. Well, is this somebody who could actually help me take care of it? Or am I just vomiting my fear upon somebody else? The other times we want to share our big vision, right? It's for our own personal edification. So again, it goes back to that fear again, because tell me I'm good. Tell me I thought this through. Tell me I have a plan here. And those are things like, maybe you need a therapist or a business coach. And those are the people that you're going to take those things to. But when you're working with somebody, exactly right, just share the information that's necessary for them to get their job done.
Oh my goodness, such great points here. A lot of great yeses in the chat. So super great conversation here. This has been so good, you guys.
I know this has been so good. So I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity, because we do have a large panel here, to tell where people can find you. Make sure you put your information in the chat again. So let's just go round robin again, or actually I'll just call on people and everyone can share where people can find you and how they can connect with you. Sarah Stokes, you are up.
Okay, so you can find me all the places. The Juicy Good Life is the company I'm representing today, and Clubhouse, Sarah Stokes. So I will put that in here as well. And I would just love to hear from any of you. And if I can support you in any way for anything, I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for bringing all your juicy goodness today. We love it. Francine, please share.
Same thing. I'm on Facebook, my website. I'll put it all in the link too. I'd love for people to join. I have a Facebook group called She Got Out of Her Own Way, because I think that is the only thing that holds us back, right? So I'll put the links in the chat as well.
Awesome. Alexanne?
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that one. Yeah, same thing. I'm on my website, alexannestone.com, and I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I'm about to start a podcast called Women's Wisdom Well, a little bit woo-woo and a whole lot wise. So if you guys are interested, anyone here, let me know. Yeah, definitely. And that's all in there too.
Oh, love it. We love podcasters. Yes, we do. Otisa.
Hey, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Otisa Eads LLC on Instagram, otisaeads.com. So just feel free to reach out to me in any of those places. I'll put everything in the chat. I love to chat with folks, so just hit me up, and I'd love to get to know anyone who wants to get to know me.
Fantastic. Laura?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can find both at Endotype and at Laura Hulleman, right? If you go to endotype.com, that's where you can take the quiz and learn more information. And if you want to reach out to me personally, I'll drop my email into the chat also. So you can just send me a direct email.
Fantastic. Melissa.
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm mostly on Facebook and Instagram at Melissa Kellogg Lueck. Lueck is spelled L-U-E-C-K. And love having connections and meeting up with anybody. So reach out and we can chat one-on-one.
Love it. Sarah Michelle, my honey girl.
So I am all over, but the best place to find me is justsarahmichelle.com. And that will take you to all the different companies, podcasts, everything. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Just Sarah Michelle.
Fantastic. And Pauline.
Hello, everybody. So I'm at CEO Pauline Malubay on Instagram and Facebook. Help Me Pauline is my agency website. I have a podcast as well. It's called How She Owns It. And I have a Facebook group, Profitable Entrepreneurs. I linked it as well in the chat. I do Facebook Lives trainings all the time. So I'm always there. I'm always looking for collaborators. So if anyone wants to jump in and share value to my community, I'm always happy to collaborate with other entrepreneurs. It's like my favorite thing to do. So come join us.
Thank you so much. Elaine.
Pauline is our international panelist today, y'all.
She is. So
I feel so special. Thank you.
I'm like, we feel so honored that you are still with us and that you're still upright. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Pauline, where are you at again? You're in.
I'm in the UK. I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's the afternoon there for sure.
Yeah,
so.
it's like getting close to the evening, and she's here. So exciting. What did you ask me, Paige? What are you saying?
It's okay. Just go ahead, sweetheart.
Go ahead with what?
So we are going to be ending a little bit early so everyone can have a break.
Oh, yeah, that's what we were going to talk about.
Oh, yeah, exactly. This is why we're yin and yang. So we can have a break. We are so just thankful for all of our leadership and business development panelists today. Our next section that we're going to be talking about is sales and marketing. Everyone always has questions with sales and marketing. Even I, even working in this space with visibility, always have additional questions, always looking to learn more. So we wanted to make sure you get a break, stand up, stretch out, grab some water, eat a little something if you need to, because we're kind of in the middle of the day here before lunch. But our next panel is going to be jam-packed. Come with your questions. As I always say, every question is welcome, and we will see you back here 10 minutes after the hour.
Let's do 10 minutes, and that way we have 10 extra minutes for sales and marketing.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So we will see you here at the top of the hour. You have 10 minutes.